So why have I spent $40,000 on therapy throughout the years? And why do I think it's completely worth it? Well, back in 2017, I was really at a kind of a rock bottom place. I was really depressed. I was barely getting out of bed in the weekends, and kind of doing the minimum work-wise. And even that felt like it took all of my energy. So, I was going through a really difficult time. At this point, I had already started 3 different companies. I was 32 at the time, so I was on my 3rd company at the time, and different varying levels of success, but we were doing 6 figures, which at the time was really good, and I would say still successful for any entrepreneur. It's really hard to start something and grow it to anything, really. So I guess you could say at the time, on paper, I was successful, but I definitely didn't feel it. It was really hard to kind of maintain it. I was always good at starting the thing and getting it going with the initial excitement phase, but it was very difficult for me to keep going after that. And I would quickly go into kind of maintenance mode and doing the bare minimum. And especially during that time, even the minimum was feeling really difficult for me. And eventually revenue would always start going down because you're not putting any energy into the company. And then I'd have to kind of do a sprint to kind of keep my head above water. So it's kind of this cycle of intense start, get it to something decent, then it goes down, sprint, try to get it back up. It was a very chaotic cycle, and a lot of that was because of how depressed I was at the time, and it was just really difficult to do anything consistently. And this had been going on for years, but definitely not as extreme as it felt back in 2017. That was almost like I said, a rock bottom type of moment, and I couldn't snap my way out of it. So even like the things I used to do, like traveling, partying, which were like all these kind of fun things to do, that would always kind of snap me out of it, wasn't working at all. It just didn't really do anything for me at the time. So I didn't really know what to do. So then I decided that the problem must be that I, haven't found my purpose. My purpose would solve everything. And, you probably hear the sarcasm because it didn't, and I don't think it ever does. I think it can temporarily. I see way too many of these gurus that talk about, and on Instagram as well, that talk about like, oh, if you find your purpose, that'll fix your life. Or if you're depressed, all you need is your purpose, that's your problem. And it's like, not really. I don't consider that. Then like, I think anyone that's been really depressed, even if you are doing your purpose or you find your purpose, it's you don't feel good about anything in your life. So I don't think finding your purpose is gonna fix anything at that point. And that wasn't the case for me at the time. It would temporarily help me. But it was also difficult to feel like anything was my purpose because I felt very ambivalent about everything. So I think that's dangerous advice when these people say that purpose is your fix-all. That's like saying success is your fix-all. It's not. So it works till it doesn't. And since I hadn't realized that, I'd figured that I'd find a coach or a performance coach that would help me find my purpose, because I was at the time very resistant to therapy. Just because like how I was raised, my culture where I'm from Belgium, therapy is not really a thing that almost anyone did at the time. Even now, it's not super open that they talk about that culturally. So it was one of those things, and it was also like something I felt like I should be able to fix by myself. So I was very resistant, which was again why I was looking for a performance coach and purpose instead of a therapist, which in hindsight was the obvious thing that I needed. But the flip side, maybe my subconscious or something was like knew that I needed therapy, because I ended up choosing a performance coach that was also a therapist, which was lucky, obviously, but like probably something was going on there. And when I met up with the performance coach, she pretty much early on, pretty much in the first session, said it would be better for me to do therapy than performance coaching. And I think where I was and how I was feeling at the time, like I was at that point just like tired and just like ready to try anything to get out of a feeling that I had at the time. So that's kind of when I started therapy. And one of the things I realized at the time was that in America, therapy is very expensive. There are some covered by insurance, depending on your insurance, how good that is. At the time, I didn't feel like there were many in my insurance at the time that were good, that I connected with. Although I feel like that's changed a lot lately, and there are a lot more good therapists. But again, like you definitely have to go through and meet a couple before you decide on someone. But at the time, I couldn't find anyone. The only one I found was this one who was out of pocket. So that was like $200 an hour, which is expensive. that adds up really quickly. But what I did at the time is I kind of prioritized it because I knew I needed it. So I basically cut out pretty much all expenses that I had and basically kept my life very minimalistic, and basically my main cost outside of rent and food and living and stuff was my therapy, and that helped me a lot, and I'm glad I did that. But like I said, like therapy isn't a straight easy way. It's not like you go and you instantly get better, and I definitely went through some ups and downs, definitely those first 6 months, especially those 6 months, after as well, but definitely those first 6 months were very up and down. Made it very hard for me to concentrate on work sometimes. And obviously, like at the time with paying that many expenses, business going down, I started running out of money. And at the time, I basically told my therapist, like, hey, like I don't think I'm gonna be able to continue. It's getting too expensive for me. Which was bad timing at the time because I was at the time going through very intense panic attacks. So it was like, okay, well, this is a really bad time to stop. And I will say, like, she did something amazing at the time, which like she also must have seen how bad it was at the time, and she basically cut her rate to 50 an hour to accommodate me so I could keep going and she could help me. So that's something that I'll always be really grateful to her for, because she really didn't have to do that, and I don't think it's super common for that to happen. So she's a really, really good and kind person. And basically I did that on the reduced rate for like, I think it was like 4 months before I kind of got myself out and work started going better again. It was a long time. But still, all of that, it adds up, and that's how, over 7 years, that turns into a lot of money spent, and it's like 40K I spent over basically 7 years. But again, like, that's the best money I ever spent. I would do that in a heartbeat again. You can do it way cheaper, of course. So many other ways to do it nowadays. So you don't have to do that, but I definitely recommend investing in yourself in that way. Everyone talks about investing in yourself, but I think mental health is the best thing to invest in yourself. Everything flows from that. For me, everything that's working for me now, even business-wise, personal-wise, all comes from that first step of going through therapy and actually feeling better. So I would recommend that to everyone. And again, like one of the things that I heard early on was that really what therapy is imagine that you're living life in black and gray, which I felt like I was at the time. Like there wasn't any color to my life. Really, therapy just allows you to experience more colors in your life. And I think when you see it like that, you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of awesome. You know what I mean? Like it gives you a more full, colorful life emotionally. And at the end of the day, that's what life is about. Life without emotions would just be robots. We would just be productivity robots. And I think sometimes, especially on social media, people are trying to push that narrative of basically be productive, be successful. But that's like treating yourself like a robot. You're not a robot, you're human. And part of human experience, and one of the best parts, are all the emotions you can feel and all the different things that go into your experience as a person. And I think that's what therapy helps with. And for those achievers, therapy also helps with achieving, because the healthier you are, the more consistent you can work and the more creative you are. And anything that I've succeeded in or that has been going well is really thanks to therapy. So again, highly recommend, and obviously like reach out to me if you want any recommendations or tips or anything like that. I'm always with this, I'm really happy to help. I'm really passionate about it because it changed my life so much. So definitely reach out directly to me. And if you have any comments, leave those down below. And yeah, look forward to talking to you guys next week. Thanks.